Lily, the caretaker's daughter, was literally run off her feet. Hardly had she brought one gentleman into the little pantry behind the office on the ground floor and helped him off with his overcoat than the wheezy half-doorbell clanged, and she had to scamper along the bare hallway to let in another guest. It was well for her that she had not to attend to the ladies also, but Miss Kate and Miss Julia had thought of that and had converted the bathroom upstairs into a ladies' dressing room. Miss Kate and Miss Julia were there, gossiping and laughing and fussing, walking after each other to the head of the stairs, peering down over the banisters and calling down to Lily to ask her who had come. It was always a great affair, the Mrs. Morkan's annual dance. Everybody who knew them came to it. Members of the family, old friends of the family, the members of Julia's choir, any of Kate's pupils that were growing up enough, and even some of Mary Jane's pupils too. Never once had it fallen flat. For years and years it had gone off in splendid style, as long as anyone could remember. Ever since Kate and Julia, after the death of their brother Pat, had left the house in Stony Batter and taken Mary Jane, their only niece, to live with them in the dark, gaunt house on Usher's Island, the upper part of which they had rented from Mr. Fulham, the corn factor on the ground floor. That was a good 30 years ago if it was a day. Mary Jane, who was then a little girl in short clothes, was now the main prop of the household, for she had the organ in Haddington Road. She had been through the academy and gave a pupils' concert every year in the upper room of the ancient concert rooms. Many of her pupils belonged to the better class families on the Kingston and Dalkey line. Old as they were, her aunts also did their share. Julia, though she was quite gray, was still the leading soprano in Adam and Eve's. And Kate, being too feeble to go about much, gave music lessons to beginners on the old square piano in the back room. Lily, the caretaker's daughter, did housemaid's work for them. Though their life was modest, they believed in eating well, the best of everything. Diamond bone sirloins, 3-shilling tea, and the best bottled stout. But Lily seldom made a mistake in the orders, though she got on well with her 3 mistresses. They were fussy, that was all. But the only thing they could not stand was back answers. Of course, they had good reason to be fussy on such a night. And then it was long after 10 o'clock, and yet there was no sign of Gabriel and his wife. Besides, they were dreadfully afraid that Freddie Malins might turn up screwed. They would not wish for worlds that any of Mary Jane's pupils should see him under the influence. And when he was like that, it was sometimes very hard to manage him. Freddie Malins always came late, but they wondered what could be keeping Gabriel. And that was what brought them every 2 minutes to the banisters to ask Lily, had Gabriel or Freddie come?
Oh, Mr. Conroy, Miss Kate and Miss Julia thought you were never coming. Good night, Mrs. Conroy.
Well, engaged that they did, but they forgot that it takes my wife here 3 mortal hours to get herself ready.
Miss Kate, here's Mrs. Conroy.
Hello, Aunt Kate. Here I am, as right as a mail. So,
Is
Lily.
it snowing again, Mr. Conroy?
Aye, it is, and I'd say we're in for a night of it. Tell me, Lily, are you still in school?
Oh, no, sir. I'm done schooling this year and more.
Goodness. Well, I wager that we'd be heading to your wedding one fine day of these with a nice young man.
Oh, no, sir. The man that is now is all only palaver and what we can get out of you.
Oh, Lily, come now. It's Christmas time, isn't it? Here.
Oh, no, sir. Really, I wouldn't take it.
Come, Lily. It's Christmas time, Christmas time.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Greta tells me you won't be taking a cab back to Monkstown tonight.
Oh no, Aunt Kate, if you remember that from last year, horrible experience. Cab windows rattling the entire way, horrible east wind blowing in once we had passed Marion. Very jolly it was. Poor Greta got a dreadful cold out of it.
Quite right. Quite right, Gabriel. You can't be too careful.
But if it were up to Greta, she'd walk home in the snow if she were let.
Don't mind him, Aunt Kate. He really is an awful bother. What with his green shades for Tom's eyes at night and doing the dumbbells. Oh, and making poor Eva eat the stirabout. And this child simply hates the stuff. Oh, but you'll never guess what he's making me wear now. Galoshes. Can you believe it? Whenever it's wet underfoot, I must put on my galoshes. Even tonight, he wanted me to put them on, but I wouldn't. The next thing he'll do is buy me a diving suit.
And what are galoshes, Gabriel? Galoshes, Julia, goodness me, don't you know what galoshes are? Why, you put them on over your boots, Greta, isn't it?
Yes, I got to purchase things. We both have a pair now. Gabriel says everyone wears them on the continent.
Oh, on the continent.
Well, there's nothing very incredible or marvelous about them at all. Greta only thinks it's funny because the word reminds her of Christy minstrels.
But tell me, Gabriel, of course, you've seen about the room. Greta
Oh
was
yes,
saying,
this year we got one at the Gresham. It's all right.
oh, to be sure, the best thing to do. And the children, Greta, you're not anxious about them.
Oh, no, for one night. Besides, Bessie will look after them.
Ah, to be sure. What a comfort it is to have a girl like that you can depend on. Oh, I'm sure I don't know what's got into Lily these days. She's just not the girl she was at all. Would you tell me where's Julia going? Julia, where are you going?
Here's Freddie.
Would you slip down like a good lad and make sure he's all right? And don't let him up if he's screwed. I'm sure he's screwed. I know he is. Oh, it's such a relief when Gabriel's here. Oh, he puts my mind at ease when he's here. Oh, look, there's Miss Daly and Miss Parr. They'll be in need of some refreshment. Thanks for the beautiful waltz, Miss Daly. You have perfect time. Quadrilles. And 2 gentlemen and 3 ladies, Mary Jane.
Oh, Miss Daly, you're awfully good playing the last 2 dances, but really, we're so short of ladies tonight.
I don't mind in the least, Miss Morkan.
But I've a nice partner for you, Mr. Bartle Darcy, the tenor. I'll get him to sing later on. All Dublin's raving about him.
Lovely boys. What's the matter? What is it, Julia? It's only Freddie, Kate, and Gabriel with them. Oh. Good evening, Freddie. He's not so bad, is he?
Oh, hardly noticeable.
Oh, now isn't he a terrible fella? And his poor mother made him take the pledge on New Year's Eve. Oh well, come on, Gabriel, let's go into the drawing.
Now, Freddie, I'd like to fill you up with a good glass of lemonade to buck you up.
Down by the Sally Gardens, my love and I did meet. She passed the Sally Gardens with little snow white feet. She bid me take love easy as the leaves grow on the trees. But I, being young and foolish, with her did not agree. In a field by the river, my love and I did stand, and on my leaning shoulder she placed her snow white hand. She bid me take life easy as the grass grows on the wheel. But I was young and foolish, and now am full of tears.
have a crow to pluck with you.
With me? What about?
Who is GC? Oh, innocent Amy. I have found out that you write for the Daily Express. Now, aren't you ashamed of yourself?
Why should I be ashamed of myself?
Well, I'm ashamed of you. To say you'd write for a paper like that. I didn't think you were a West Briton. Of course, I was only joking. Come, we cross now. Oh, Mr. Conroy, will you come for an excursion to the Aran Isles this summer? We're going to spend an entire month out there. It'll be splendid out in the Atlantic. You ought to come. Mr. Clancy will be there, and Mr. Kilkelly, and Kathleen Carney. It would be splendid for Greta too if she'd come. She's from Connacht, isn't she?
Her people are.
Oh, but you will come, won't you?
Well, you see, I had just made arrangements to go to...
Where?
Well, you see, every year, some fellows and I organise a cycling trip to the continent. And we go to...
But where?
France, Belgium, Germany perhaps.
And why do you go to France and Belgium instead of visiting your own land?
Well, you see, partially to keep up with the languages, and partially for a change of scenery.
And haven't you your own language to keep in touch with? Irish?
Well, if it comes to that, Irish is not my language.
And haven't you your own land to visit? That which you know nothing of. Your own people and your own country.
My country? Well, it comes to that as well. I'm sick of it. Sick of it.
But why? Why, of course. You've no answer. West Britain.
Gabriel. And Kate wants to know if you'll carve the goose as usual. Miss Daly will do the ham and I'll do the pudding.
All right.
She's going to send the younger ones in as soon as this waltz is over, so we'll have the table to ourselves.
Were you dancing?
Of course I was. Didn't you see me? What row did you have with Miss Ivers?
I had no row. Did she say so?
Something like that. I'm trying to get that Mr. Darcy to sing. He's full of conceit, I think.
Well, there was no row, anyhow. She was only asking if I'd go to the West Coast with her for the summer trip, and I told her I wouldn't.
Oh, do go, Gabriel. I'd love to see Galway again.
You can go if you like.
There's a nice husband for you, Mrs. Mallins.
Ladies and gentlemen, my sister, Miss Julia Morkan, after much coaxing, has consented to sing us a song, one of her favourites, from her concert days, Arrayed for the Bridal. Arrayed for the Bridal by Bellini. Arrayed for the bridal, in beauty behold her, a white wreath entwined, a forehead more fair. I envy the zephyrs that softly enfold her. Oh, 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 enfold her, and play with the locks of her beautiful hair.
I was just telling my mother I'd never heard her sing so well. Never. No, your voice is so fresh and clear tonight. That's absolutely never. Do you believe me?
Miss Julia Morkan, my latest discovery.
Well, Brownie, you could do worse. Because I've never heard her sing half so well as tonight. Never. And that's the honest truth.
Neither did I. I think her voice has greatly improved.
30 years ago, I hadn't a bad voice, as voices go.
I often tell Julia that she's simply wasted in that choir, but she wouldn't be said by me. Oh, no, she wouldn't be said or led by anyone. Oh, slaving away in that choir night and day, 6 o'clock on Christmas morning. And all for what?
Well, is it not for the honour of God, Aunt Kate?
Oh, I know all about the honour of God, Mary Jane. And I think it's not at all honourable for the Pope to be turning the women out of the choirs, women who've slaved there all their lives, and putting little whippersnappers of boys over their heads. Oh, I suppose it's for the good of the church if the Pope does it, but it's not just, Mary Jane, and it's not right.
Now, Aunt Kate, you're giving scandal to Mr. Brown, who's of the other persuasion.
Oh, I'm not questioning the Pope's being right. I'm just a stupid old woman and wouldn't presume to do such a thing. But there is such a thing as common everyday politeness and gratitude. And if I were in Julia's place, I'd be telling that Father Healy straight up to his face.
And besides, Aunt Kate, we're all really hungry, and when we're hungry, we're all very quarrelsome.
And when we're thirsty, we are also quarrelsome.
So we had better to supper and finish the discussion afterwards.
But only for 10 minutes, Molly. Surely that won't delay you.
To have a pick itself after all your dancing.
No, really, I couldn't.
I'm afraid you didn't enjoy yourself at all.
Ever so much, I assure you. But you really must let me run off now.
But how will I get home?
Oh, it's only a few steps up from the quays. Mrs. Ives, if you really must go, I can escort you home.
I won't hear of it. For goodness sakes, go into your suppers and don't mind me. I'm well able to take care of myself.
Well, you're a comical girl, Molly.
Banach leave.
Where's Gabriel? Where on earth is Gabriel? There's the rooms full of people, the stage is set, and nobody to carve the goose.
Well, here I am, Aunt Kate, ready to carve a flock of geese if necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, it has fallen to my lot this evening, as in years past, to perform a very pleasing task, but a task nonetheless for which I am afraid my poor powers as a speaker are all too inadequate. No. But however that may be, I can only ask you tonight to take the will for the deed and to lend me your attention for a few moments while I endeavor to express to you in words the feelings I have on this occasion. It is not for the first time that we have gathered together under this hospitable roof, around this hospitable board. It is not for the first time that we have been recipients, or perhaps I should better say the victims of, the hospitality of certain good ladies. I feel more strongly with every recurring year that our country has no tradition in which it closes so much honor and should guard so jealously as that of its hospitality. It's a tradition that is unique as far as my experiences go, and I have traveled to many of the modern nations. Some would say, though, perhaps it is with us rather a failing than anything to be boasted of. A new generation is growing up in our midst, a generation actuated by new ideas and new principles. It is serious and enthusiastic, but it is in this enthusiasm, sometimes when it is misdirected, I believe all to be sincere just the same. But as we are living in a skeptical and a, perhaps may use the phrase, a thought-tormented age, that I fear that this new generation, educated or hyper-educated as it may be, will lack the qualities of humanity, humility, and hospitality that belonged to an older day. But then, there are always in gatherings such as these, sadder thoughts that recur to our minds. Thoughts of the past, of youth, of changes, of absent faces that we miss around us here tonight. Alas, I will not linger on the past. I will not let any gloomy moralizing intrude upon us here tonight. We have gathered for a brief moment away from the bustle of our everyday routines. We are here as friends, in the spirit of camaraderie, good fellowship, and as colleagues. Also, as the guests of, what shall I call them, the three musical graces of Dublin.
Hey! He said we're the three graces, Aunt Julia.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will not attempt to play the role tonight that Paris had played on another occasion. I will not attempt to choose between them. The task would be an invidious one and a far task beyond my poor powers. For when I view them in turn, whether it is our chief hostess here tonight, whose good heart, whose too good heart, has become a byword to all those who know her, or her sister, who seems to be gifted with perennial youth, and whose singing must have been a surprise to us all here tonight. Or, last but not least, to the youngest of our hostesses, talented, cheerful, hardworking, and the best of nieces. I confess, ladies and gentlemen, I do not know which of them I should award the prize. So let us toast to all three together. Let us drink to their health, wealth, long life, happiness, and prosperity. May the long continue to hold the proud and self-run position in which they hold in their profession, and the position of honor and affection which they hold in our hearts.
For they are jolly gay fellows, for they are jolly gay fellows, for they are jolly gay fellows, which nobody can deny, unless he tells a lie. Unless he tells a lie. Unless he tells a lie. Unless he tells a lie.
Somebody close the door. Mrs. Mans will get her dead.
Oh, Brown is out there, Aunt Kate.
Oh, Brown is everywhere.
Really, he's very attentive.
Freddie will have all the cabs in Dublin out.
Is Greta not down yet?
Oh, no, she's up putting on her things, Gabriel.
Well, who's upstairs?
Well, nobody, they're all gone.
Oh, no, Aunt Kate. Bartle Darcy and Miss O'Callaghan aren't gone yet.
Someone's playing music.
Oh, it makes me feel cold to look at the two of you gentlemen all muffled up like that. I'd hate to face your journey home at this hour.
I'd like nothing better than a rattling fine walk in the country. Or a fast drive with a good spanking goer between the shafts.
We used to have a very fine horse and trap at home.
I could only get one cab.
Oh, well, we'll get another one up the quay.
Yes, we mustn't keep Mrs. Mallon stranded in the draft.
Do you know Trinity College?
Yes, sir.
Well, drive bang up against the Trinity College gates, and then we'll tell you where to go.
Right, sir.
Okay. Make like a bird for Trinity College.
Yes, sir.
Well, isn't Freddie terrible? He's really terrible.
If you be the lass of Aughrim, as I suppose you to be, tell me the last token that passed between you and me. Oh, Gregory, don't you remember the night upon the hill when we swapped rings off each other's hands solely against my will? Yours was of the beaten gold, mine was but black tin. Yours was of the beaten gold. Mine was but black tin. Oh, Gregory, don't you remember the night in my father's hall, when you had the will of me, and that was the worst of all. The rain falls on my yellow locks, the dew, it wets my skin. My babe lies cold within my arms. Oh, Gregory, let me in.
Oh, it's Bartle Darcy singing. He hasn't sung all the night. I'll see if I can get him to say a song before he goes.
Oh, do, Mary Jane.
What a pity. Is he coming down, Greta? Mr. Darcy, it's downright mean of you to break off like that when we were all in raptures listening to you.
Oh, couldn't you see I'm as coarse as a crow?
It's the weather. Everybody has colds. Everybody.
They say the snow is the most we've had in 30 years, and I read on the newspaper this morning that the snow is general all over Ireland.
I love the look of snow.
So do I. I think Christmas isn't Christmas unless there's snow on the ground.
Mr. Darcy doesn't like the snow, because that was a great fib he was telling.
Mr. Darcy, what is that song that you were singing?
Well, it's called The Lass of Aughrim. I didn't sing it properly, really. Do you know it?
The Lass of Aughrim. Couldn't remember the name of it.
It's a very nice air. I'm sorry you were not in good voice tonight.
Don't annoy Mr. Darcy. I won't have him annoyed. Mary Jane.
Well, I'm Kate. Thank you very much for the pleasant evening.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, Aunt Kate. Good night.
Good night.
Miss
Good
Aunt
night,
Julia.
Greta.
Thank you for a lovely evening. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Oh, good night.
Good night.
Safe home.
Take care. Good night.
Good night. God bless.
Good night.
Greta, you look tired.
I am a little.
Are you feeling ill or weak?
No, tired is all.
Well, you know that poor fellow, Mr. Mallins. He's
Yes.
really not that sort of a bad lad. He gave me back that sovereign I lent him last year. I wasn't expecting it, really. I really wish he would stay away from that Mr. Brown. He's really not that bad of a lad.
When did you lend him that pound?
Oh, well, last year around Christmas time, when he was opening up that card shop on Henry Street.
You're very generous, Gabriel.
Greta, what's wrong? Do I know what the matter is?
Oh, I'm thinking about that song, The Lass of Aughrim.
And what is it about that song that has you so sad?
It reminds me of a person I used to know long ago.
Oh. And who was this person?
It was a person I used to know when I was living in Galway with my grandmother.
Someone you used to love.
It was a young boy named Michael Fury. He used to sing that song, The Lass of Aughrim. I can see him so plainly. He had such eyes, big, dark eyes with an expression in them. An expression.
Well, that's perhaps why you meant to go to the west with Mrs. Ivers then.
What for?
Well, perhaps to see him.
He is dead. He died when he was only 17. Isn't it a terrible thing to die so young as that?
And what was it that he did?
He was in the gasworks.
And how did he die then? Was it consumption.
I think he died for me. It was in the winter, about the beginning of winter, when I was living with my grandmothers. He was very ill at the time in his lodgings, and he wouldn't be let out, and his family in Uachtarard were written to. He was in decline, they said, or something like that. I never rightly knew.
Well?
He was a gentle boy. We used to go walking together like they do in the country. He was a gentle boy and a beautiful voice. He was going to study singing only for his health. Poor Michael Fury.
So you were in love with him then?
I was great with him at the time.
And then what?
And then it came time for me to leave Galway and come up to the convent. And he was doing much worse in his lodgings, and I wouldn't be let to see him, so I wrote him a letter saying that I'd be back in the summer and that I hoped he'd be better by then, and I could see him. And then, the night before I left, I was packing at my grandmother's on Nuns Island, and I could hear gravel tapping the window. It was so wet outside I couldn't see, so I slipped out as I was. And there he was, the poor boy shivering.
Did you not tell him to go home?
I implored of him to go home at once. Said he'd catch his death in the rain. But he said he didn't want to live. I could see him standing there so plainly up against the wall and the tree.
And then, did he go?
He did. And when I was only a week in the convent, he died. And the day I heard that he had died.
Oh, Greta, the poor part I've played in your life. It's as if we had never lived together as man and wife. How beautiful your face is to me, but it is no longer the face that Michael Fury had braved death for. Oh, poor Aunt Julia. I saw her haggard look upon the face for a moment when she was singing a raid for the bridal. Soon, she'll turn a shade too. Oh. I'll be sitting in that same drawing room very shortly, dressed in black, sitting next to Aunt Kate, listening to her crying and blowing her nose and telling me how Julia had died. Yes, that will happen very soon. Soon, they'll all be turning a shade. Better to pass boldly in the passion and glory of youth than to wither away dismally with age. How long have you laid beside me, locked in your heart, for those many years, the eyes of your young lover, Michael Fury, when he had told you that he had no longer wished to live without you by his side? I have never felt such a feeling towards any woman, but I know that such a feeling must be love.
The tears gathered more thickly in his eyes, and in the partial darkness, he imagined he saw the form of a young man standing under a dripping tree. Other forms were near. His soul had approached that region where dwell the vast hosts of the dead. He was conscious, but could not apprehend their wayward and flickering existence. His own identity was fading out into the green, impalpable world, the solid world itself, which these dead had one time reared and lived in, was dissolving and dwindling. A few light taps upon the pane made him turn to the window. It had begun to snow again. He watched sleepily the flakes, silver and dark, falling obliquely against the lamplight. The time had come for him to set out on his journey westward. Yes, the newspapers were right. Snow was general all over Ireland. It was falling on every part of the dark central plain, on the treeless hills, falling softly upon the bog of Allen, and further westward, softly falling into the dark, mutinous Shannon waves. It was falling, too, upon every part of the lonely churchyard on the hill where Michael Fury lay buried. It lay thickly drifted on the crooked crosses and headstones, on the spears of the little gate on the barren thorns. His soul swooned slowly as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe, and faintly falling like the descent of their last end upon all the living and the dead.